What up? It's your boy Concrete. So, finishing up with some TPA. Went through a bunch of TPA. This is going to be the last video on TPA for a while. Again, sucker for loosely thematic categories, so we're doing bakeries. You'll be able to tell that this is a fairly loose definition of bakery, but I have TPA's Gingerbread Extra Ginger, Popcorn Movie Theater. What's the last one? Sweet Cereal Flakes. And finally, Sweet Cereal Flakes. So let's wrap this up already. Starting right out, we got Gingerbread Extra Ginger. So you may ask yourself why I'm testing a gingerbread flavor in February. And the answer to that, of course, is just pre-gaming for the holidays already. So this is supposed to be a reformulation of TPA's original gingerbread flavor that has a higher flash point. It's like the safe to transport version. What I do get though, I definitely get the ginger. There's some spice here, but there's nothing beyond the spice. It's just spice. Ginger forward, obviously gingerbread, that makes sense. It's a very true kind of bakery ginger flavor. You know, there's nothing weird, there's nothing candied. Just tastes pretty much like baked ginger. It's pretty nice. It's nice and spicy, fairly robust, not particularly thin, not particularly sweet, but it just kind of does what it needs to do. The other big thing that I pick up here is clove. There is definitely a fairly substantial helping of clove here. I like clove, so that's not an issue, but if you just want a ginger, you gotta deal with that clove too. Very good clove flavor, actually. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Tastes pretty much like a bakery clove. Ginger up front and then that clove sort of in there too. Very, very aggressive. And so I'd be lying if I said that I picked out a cinnamon flavor in here. But since it is TPA and they are awesome, they do have the component list, this has some cinnamon in there too. Like I said, for me at least, it gets kind of lost with the ginger and the clove here. But if you're looking for it, you can pick up a little bit of cinnamon. But the issue, there is no actual like bakery base to this at all. There's nothing that actually tastes like the cookie or the bread part of gingerbread. It's just that sort of spice mix. And as it goes, I mean, it's definitely not a bad spice mix. I could see using this sort of for a holiday or pumpkin spice or something like that. That isn't just a clove bomb. This does better than that. This is a ginger and clove bomb. You could use it with other gingerbread flavors too, like a more mellow gingerbread flavor like Cap's gingerbread or something. If you wanted to add a little bit of this, it'd probably take you closer to like a really heavily, aggressively spiced gingerbread flavor. Strong stuff though, definitely strong stuff. 0.25% should probably do most of what you want it to do. 0.5% might be pushing a little bit. I can't ever imagine a situation in which I'd need over 1% of this, but you know, it's DIY, so knock yourself out. Put 2% in for all I care. Moving right along, I have their Popcorn Movie Theater. So with a name like Popcorn Movie Theater, you assume they are going to bust out all of that sweet, delicious DAP. That didn't really happen for me. So I do get a popcorn flavor out of this. The actual popcorn here isn't bad. You know, it feels a little bit more like popcorn smells when it's being popped. You know, like there's a distinct popcorniness to it, but I don't get like a crispy texture. It just kind of feels dry and thin, but that seems to be kind of par for the course with popcorn flavors. I think you could kind of go back in and bolster that up with like some Capella Cereal 27 or some other sort of low impact AP source to get you a little bit more crunch and definition there. The movie theater part, I'm not as sure about here. So yeah, like I said, I assume they'd be using like a lot of diacetyl or something for like an actual movie theater butter popcorn. I don't get that. There's something kind of funky here. So instead of like a rich movie theater butter popcorn, I get kind of a waxy, rancid coconut thing going on. It definitely feels slightly rich, but it's not really a buttery richness. It's that kind of like waxy, fatty richness. And then the butyric notes, I tried this with like a decent amount of steep, but it still tasted just a little bit vomity to me. The coconut thing's weird too, so it doesn't like necessarily jump right out to me, but I think once I tasted it, it was really hard to not taste it. It's that same kind of odd coconut note in like Capella's biscuit or TPA's cheesecake graham crust. It's like once you taste the coconut, I don't think you can come back from it. But yeah, it's kind of fruity, you know, and so you have that kind of rancid, waxy richness with that fruitiness. It just doesn't really work for me, you know. I don't like the popcorn underneath it that much. I mean, that's not to say this flavor is completely useless. You could probably use it as like 2% as like a sweet popcorn accent. I don't know. Overall, it seems a little bit like inherently sweet to me for movie theater popcorn. It seems like more like caramel corn sweet. So I think if you like threw enough aggressive caramel and stuff at it, you might be able to go ahead and get rid of some of that fruitiness or at least cover it up. As a primary note, seems a little dicey to me, but if you did want to do it, I mean, just crank the percentage up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you could probably make this work in some popcorn profiles. I don't know. The only other popcorn I've tried is Favore's popcorn, and while that has some of those same kind of like butyric notes, they're kind of more of like a dairy, cheesy, sour as opposed to like fruity. So that might end up being a little bit easier to work with in those kind of popcorn profiles. So last for today, I have TPA's Sweet Cereal Flakes. TPA calls this a sugary cornflake. I do get cereal, but it doesn't taste a whole lot like cornflakes to me. So, tastes like bran flakes, which it's a pretty impressive bran flake flavor, but I'm not getting like that warmth and that sweetness that I'd really associate with cornflakes. It definitely feels slightly earthy to me. It tastes more like multi-grain. At the very tail end of this, I do get something that tastes like a little bit of a hot iron flavor, but I'm the only one who ever complains about that kind of stuff, so just feel free to ignore that part. But I will definitely stand up and say this tastes a lot more like Raisin Bran without the raisins. So the weird thing is, I don't get corn out of this, but I do certainly get like the frosted part of this. It tastes like frosted bran flakes. I'm not entirely sure what they're doing with the icing here. It has that kind of like powdered sugar frosting kind of vibe. It's not overwhelming. It's pretty much in proportion with the base. And the cool thing is there's like a good amount of separation too. Like it actually kind of feels like frosted as opposed to just tasting like down in the flavor and making the entire thing sweeter. I am running into some pretty serious textural issues with this though. So one of the big defining characteristics of a flake would in fact be its flakiness or crunch. And I am not really getting any kind of flakiness or crunch. I mean, there's that solid kind of wall of bran, and there's very little definition. It just feels kind of soft, you know, like more like a multi-grain bread than like an actual crispy, crunchy flake. But with all that said, it does get like more branish at higher percentages. I think about the closest this comes to a cornflake would probably be at lower percentages, like 3% maybe. You could kind of spin it as cornflakes, especially if you have something sweeter in the mix, but once you start getting up past that for like a fuller flavor, that's where all that kind of like bran weirdness comes in for me. I think you could take it up around like 5% for like a full-on like bran flavor, but I'm not sure this is going to make its way into a lot of cereals, or I should rephrase it. I'm not sure I'd put it in a lot of cereals. I'm sure there's better mixers than me out there who actually know what's going on here. But where I do see this as being really interesting is with muffin flavors, right? So if you wanted to add some sort of that multi-grain, branny kind of depth to a bakery base, I think this would be a really good choice. You know, it doesn't have enough AP that it's going to make the entire thing too crunchy. It'll still be like a soft, slightly darker kind of muffin flavor. So that concludes our scheduled journey of going through some of the newer TPA additions to Bull City flavors. Thank you for coming along with me. I really do appreciate it. If you were looking at any of these, I hope that was helpful. But thank you for watching. I'll catch you later.